Brew, is this a must-win for McCarthy to keep his job?
I don't think so. I mean, I feel like he's got a good chance of keeping his job because if I think Jerry Jones, coach, I think I know he wants to win, but I think he wants to win his way. And he wants to being the show, being the center of attention. And Mike McCarthy is a coach that, he's not going to get in the way. Jerry, you can do all your interviews. I'm not going to say, he's kind of like Jason Garrett. I'm out of the way. You can be the show and do your thing, and you're not going to hear anything from me. And it's justifiable to keep him. We can sit out here and point out his flaws, and we all see him, but they won 12 games, 3 straight years. This year, you can easily write off, even though they started slow when they were healthy, you can still say, look, Dak got hurt, Micah got hurt. I don't know that Jerry would look at the offseason like he should and say, I didn't do what I need to do, but he can say we don't have a running back. You can justify right off this season if you want to. And then you can rationalize why bringing McCarthy back. And, Nick, I would think if they were interested, why didn't they at least give Belichick a feel? Let him know, look, we might be interested. If you really are looking for another coach, I would think at least put it out there to him that, hey, we got some interest in you. We at least want to talk. Well, they didn't even do that.
Sure, Jerry wasn't looking for a 300-page Bible to roll into Dallas. That's not really the program he's
But don't
on.
you think he could have just sent out
let him know.
Just even an intermediary,
Right.
Yeah, look, you can. That happens all the time where people talk to people, under the
guys of we're talking about something else.
So that
How are the kids?
Especially
You
because
available?
Bill's a media member now, so I'm sure he could have talked to him, from an interview standpoint. But so there's that. I don't think necessarily this is the game that he has to win. I think over the course of the next month, he's going to be evaluated, and he can definitely save his job or he can lose his job. I think more the last 2 games, you beat Philly or Washington. If you're the reason you eliminate Washington from the playoffs, that's a nice way to end the season.
That's smart.
You beat Philly, the division leader. Win both of those games, I think that makes a huge difference. And then you got Tampa before, so you've got 3 potential playoff teams in a row. You have a really good showing against them. And Carolina's not the same Carolina they were at the beginning of the season. So not necessarily this game, but I think over the course of the month how they play.
Yeah, that's why they're not winning again. And he's not coming back. I think that Bengals game was too devastating for them. Mike is literally crying.
Yeah.
You see a young player who the team loves suffer as bad of a knee injury as you can suffer, which I think for all the guys rattles around in their brain a bit when you're playing meaningless games like that. Guys are taking it a little bit easier. And Carolina has been dying for a victory. They won 2, then the Chiefs beat them on a field goal. Tampa beat them in overtime. We saw what happened last week in Philly. So I think this line's correct. I like Carolina in this spot. And then I think Tampa on Sunday Night Football, national TV, is going to beat you. And then Philly on Fox, potentially with Tom Brady on the call 425 game, is going to beat you. And then Washington, like you said, might be really playing for something, and you are.
And they already beat Washington.
Right. And so
those national TV games do help you when you have a down team.
Yeah, well,
because those guys don't want to be embarrassed on national TV either. They're going to go out and ball out so they're not exposed.
I agree with that, but even in that Bengals game, when Cooper Rush played as well as he could, they couldn't muster more than 20 points. I think that the Cincinnati game was the end. And that you're going to see it on Sunday against Carolina. And when the Cowboys end on a 5-game losing streak, 5-12, Mike.
Okay. So they actually all brought up interesting points. On one side, right, let's just get this out of the way, right? Obviously, it's not a must win, right? If you beat the Panthers, you keep your job. And if you lose, then you lose your job. And that doesn't make any sense. The reality is though, the Eagles game could be interesting. It might actually really matter for the Eagles depending on what happens with, say, like the Lions and the Vikings. They could still be competing for that number 1 seed. So, you'll see how valuable that game is to just the Eagles. But the Commanders, they might already be locked in at that 7 seed. They might be, the Commanders might be playing for nothing. So they might actually legitimately be resting their starters for that game. That is a real legitimate possibility when you look at the math of the standings. So again, that final game of the season could literally be meaningless. And, all these games are ultimately meaningless for the Cowboys. So I don't know. I don't know what the expectations are going to be where you have these injuries, you're playing with a backup quarterback. Like, you either believe in your coach or not. And what your coach does with a backup quarterback in this situation, after you've already seen him for years, what are you going to be like, wow, I didn't realize how good Mike McCarthy was. He won a bunch of games with a backup quarterback. He's better than I thought he was. I'm going to keep him. Oh, he couldn't even win with Cooper Rush. How can I don't know what he does for Dak then. Yep, I'm going to move on from him. Like, I don't understand where you're going to get new information. You've seen him with Dak. We don't even have to go back to Aaron Rodgers. We know what he looks like with a fully healthy Dallas Cowboys team. We've seen him with Zeke. We've seen him with Dak. We've seen him with CD. I mean, we've seen him. We know who he is. We know what he's done. So you either like him and believe in him as a head coach, as a leader of the franchise, his ability to, run a staff, run practices, organize, just from the more, not even like the X's and O's, but I just mean like more from the more behind the scenes type stuff that a head coach needs to deal with. You either love how he handles all that and has everyone organized and prepared and ready to go, or you don't. You either like the culture that he instills and his ability to lead the players and the coaching staff for that matter. You either like that or you don't. You either like how he approaches the X's and O's and you think that he is maximizing the players that are given to him, or you don't. And learning, there's nothing to learn with Mike McCarthy in this regard. I mean, I guess technically, if they were healthier and they just only lost Dak and they were able to rip off like 4 or 5 wins, and yeah, you can maybe be like, oh, that's pretty impressive. But he essentially already did that before, a couple years ago. So he's already kind of checked that box, so to speak. And it's not like you can expect all great coaches to consistently win with backup quarterbacks in any given moment. It's just not always going to be that easy. So, yeah, I mean, that's really what it gets boiled down to. But in terms of like whether they should keep him or shouldn't, like that ends up being a different discussion entirely. Because like I said, if you're trying to figure out, do you keep him based off of these next few games, then you're probably making the wrong decision, honestly, if you're using this as actual data. If you're considering it, which doesn't mean anything to me. But in terms of should they keep him, I guess my question is, if they fire him, who are they going to hire? Like, who are they going to hire? I just, are they really going to go, is Ben Johnson going to want to go there? Because I'm not so sure about that. Are you going to try to get Cliff Kingsbury? I mean, I don't know. Are you going to get, Ron Rivera? Are you going to, I mean, like, seriously, like, where are you going to get these people? Robert Saleh? Mike Vrabel, like, that would be a decent hire. But then again, now you got to figure out the OC, because now you are kind of, going in a different direction, getting a defensive head coach. Like, that's what that does. It's just not so clear to me in terms of, like, are you going to get Flores? Like, those will all be decent hires, especially Flores and Vrabel. But now that's defense. And so you can now go that direction if you want to be a defensive-led team. But then again, you really got to nail the offensive hire, the OC hire. And then you got to see, like, with a defensive-led team, is that something that Dak will be able to win in? Will he be able to win in that environment? Like, you will have to build the team differently. You will have to make sure you take care of that O-line, that you take care of that run game. You're going to be minimizing the usage of Dak, the quarterback that you just paid a gajillion dollars, which now limits you to just build said team. You're going to double down on defense. Like, it's again, like we talked about this before, it's not the worst idea, but you just got to really make sure you take care of it. And the reality is, if that was the direction you were going to do, then you probably needed to not pay Dak the amount of money that you did, quite frankly. And I think minimizing the importance of any quarterback is beneficial to a team. When you're too reliant on your quarterback, that's when you run into trouble. But it's not clear to me that would lead the Cowboys to a straight line to victory. when you look at some of these other games, and it's like if you looked at how they've lost in the playoffs and stuff like that over these last, few years, how they've collapsed in their 12, when they've had 12 plus wins a year. Was it really defense? Like if you said, oh, you know what, if this was more of a defensive led team, we would have been better. Like I don't necessarily see that. So you will be, and Nick is the one that kind of, proposed that this needs to be a defensive led team. If you do that, like that, then like you will be changing everything essentially. You will be putting everything, flipping upside your head. And if it ends up being a defensive led team, then Micah is going to be the true leader of the Dallas Cowboys. And is he capable of doing that? Can he be the number one, the main voice in the locker room? And I don't know. So, but yeah, this is just a funny question, right? Must win for Mike to keep his job against the Panthers. Like what? How does that? Now we're reaching. Now we're reaching. But Nick has them just losing out from here on out. So we shall see. I think they'll probably get at least one of these victories out here. So, but yeah, it would definitely be a lot easier to fire McCarthy if he just keeps losing game after game after game after game, or if he has a couple other bad games where it's really like ugly losses. But like I said, you got to figure out who are you hiring. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Dallas Cowboys? Do you think they should keep Mike McCarthy? Do you think they should move on from him? And do you think the way how this season ends will have any bearing to any influence on whether or not Mike McCarthy stays the head coach or not? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.